Thank you so much for joining us on Straight Out of Savannah. I am super excited to be here. My guest Shakti is here, and she is going to share all about who she is and how she can help you. So, Shakti, take it away.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Tammy. This is such an honor to be here. When I got your message, I was like, instant yes, like full body yes. Didn't even have to open your message before I knew that it was a yes. I was like, whatever this is for me. So, yeah, I'm Shakti. I'm a healer, a mystic. I'm very much like a bridge between different dimensions, between different planes, and that's pretty much what my work sort of encompasses is the healing arts, we might call them, or the alchemical arts. So yeah.
I love that, a bridge. I love that. So let's dive back and let's talk about, you know, how you got started on this journey and where did you come from?
Yeah, so I was born in Edinburgh, Scotland, and I have a really I suppose complex might be the right word. Family history. I know a lot of healers. That is what we incarnate into. This is the path that we choose, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit more. But I am a walk-in soul, so my sort of soul mission was to initially to clear up the family line, to clear up the family karma,
Mm.
and so as such, I incarnated into a family with really dense ancestral karma. My mom is originally from the Caribbean, and of course, we're aware of the transatlantic slave trade and the horrors that went on with that, and how there hasn't really been any true healing done to those lineages. And so I was kind of born into this situation where I was growing up in Scotland. I am of mixed ethnicity. My dad's a whole mix of, other things, but I very much was sort of isolated and felt very different from my peers. Scotland is known to be very white. When you think of Scotland, you don't necessarily think of people that look like me,
Right?
you know, and there's nothing wrong with that, but of course for me when I was growing up, that was really challenging because I was always made to feel different, and I experienced a lot of isolation and sort of difficulties around that. And my mom was transracially adopted, so she was kind of raised by a white family, and again didn't really understand why she felt the ways that she did, and
Yes.
experienced a lot of racism growing up, and so had a lot of complexities around that. And so that led me down some really, really challenging pathways in my sort of my adolescence, my teenage years, and took me a lot to kind of face myself and come deeper into that very sort of shamanic kind of healer that I am today.
Yes. That is so powerful. If you think about it, I like what you said. So many of us healers have that same experience. We we come into these families that um I just have to laugh. Sometimes I think about some of the things that some of us have been through, and I can also always speak on myself, because I think about, like years ago, I used to ask God, I said, why did I have to go through so much, stuff so young? Like I started going through shit young. And so I was like, why did I have to go through all of that? And it was so crazy because I asked that a few times, and the first couple of times I didn't get any answer, like nothing. I didn't hear anything, I didn't see nothing, nothing. Finally, the third time I asked the question, he said, it's not about you. It's not for you. And I thought to myself, well, why the fuck not? If it's my life, why? Why must I have to go, so that I can be an example for other people,
Mm.
and that is, I think that is what we do as healers. Um, so tell me, when you grew up, what was the thing that you wanted to do? I mean, did you come into this place where you were stepping into your gifts and embodying who you are at a young age, or what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I would say kind of yes and no. I mean, I was always hyper sensitive. You know, I'm a Pisces. I'm not sure if you're into astrology, but for those that are, I'm a Pisces stellium. So I'm like all Pisces.
Oh,
So
wow.
super sensitive, super absorbent. You know, I have so much of that, you know, deep oceanic kind of water energy. And, you know, I was always very creative as a child, and you know, very much lost myself in sort of creative worlds and art and that kind of thing, you know. So yeah, I mean, I was definitely very empathic and very dreamy, you know. So I would say that my gifts were definitely open, but I wasn't sure. I didn't understand them, and I didn't know how to use them, and I didn't know you know, that I always felt things around me sort of touching me, and you know, felt the energy of different spirits, but didn't have a language to be able to describe what I was experiencing, and very much used to absorb the moods of everyone around me and things like that, but again, had no language to describe it. And so I think by the time I was about sort of 12, I started to have, you know, really extreme sort of emotional breakdowns and outbursts and that kind of thing. And I think by that point it had all just got too much with everything that I'd experienced, plus how sensitive I am. I literally just could not cope with the world anymore. And so I think from that age I started to kind of shut down a little bit more, and
Yeah.
started to kind of mask things with anger and you know, those sort of more sort of protective kind of emotions that we use to block the world out, you know. So
Yes.
yeah, so I would say yes and no. And it was when I was about 17 that I started to open up again. And so this would have been 2011, which is interesting if you think about the whole 2012 and the sort of kind of collective kind of awakening energies that were happening then. So I think around 2011 I started to really be hit with that and feel that. And
Yes.
again, didn't know what was happening, just knew that I was experiencing psychic phenomena. You know, I would think about things and the exact same thing would happen the next day. And, you know, it was really kind of opening up oracularly, if that makes sense. But
Yes.
again, no one around me knew what was going on. You know, my family were all just really concerned about my sort of mental health and well-being. And now when I look back, it's so clear to me. Hindsight is so exact, you know. So now
Yes.
I'm like, oh my God, I was going through an awakening. But of course, you know, at that time I was just felt like I was struggling with life, you know.
Yes. And what helped you to get through that?
Well, over those next few years, I would say they were the darkest that it got. And you know, I really went into the whole substance abuse thing, was in a couple of abusive relationships, ended up
Yeah.
in prostitution. Really, I mean, it was dark, you know. And
Yes.
it then kind of by my early 20s, probably around the age of 20, I don't know what started happening. I think another level of awakening
Yes.
was hitting me, where I realized like I'm worth so much more than this. I don't want this for myself. I want something so different. And I really started to trust my intuition. And I'd had a number of initiations, I would say, into my intuitive capacity by that time, where I was just like, nah, I know stuff. Okay. I know when things are going to happen. I know people's intentions. I can feel everything, you know. So at that time I sort of pulled back from all of this sort of dark places that I had been walking within, and started to just pull back the pieces of myself, which took time. Of
Mm.
course, I had to go on such a deep healing journey to recover from
Yes.
everything I had experienced, you know, seeing literally the worst of what humanity has to offer, you know,
Yes.
and having to face that darkness within myself. And all of it led me to these really deep kind of shamanic experiences, out of body experiences, that I sort of realized I could go into those very, very easily, that I had that capacity awakened within me, and I just had to trust it. And you know,
Yes.
went to different healers, and you know, all of that kind of that journey. And then I sort of decided I was going to get back into education after having left really young. And so I kind of went down that route for a while. And I'm also a poet. I'm a published writer, performer, poet. And so I sort of found myself within that creative world again. So again, kind of dipping back into what I had done when I was younger. And I used to do a lot of poetry around history and the transatlantic slave trade. And, I was doing all of this research about my ancestry, about my mother line and what had gone on there, because I was never taught that, And so I would write poems about, and I really now looking back again, hindsight, I'm like, I was channeling my ancestors. I was sharing the stories that never got to be told. And, that ended up with that work reaching thousands and thousands of people. I've, performed on stages in front of literally thousands and thousands of people. And, I've been on TV, I've done all of these amazing things. But again, there was something within me that was like, this isn't it. This isn't the pinnacle of, I mean, look, we never reached the pinnacle, right? But,
Right.
I knew that there was more. It was like I wasn't totally fulfilled in the performance stuff, even though I loved it. It came so naturally. But there was something where I was like, oh, there's something else. And that led to me receiving a really strong shamanic call when I would have been 27. So I'm 30 now. So just before I turned 27, again, my whole life was kind of turned upside down. And I sort of realized, I was like, wait a minute. I think I'm being called on the healer path, and it was just so strong. And I think a lot of healers can attest to this, that when you get called, you just know it, and you can't fight it. It's so deep within your soul, and you have to honor it. Otherwise, spirit will beat you over the head until you accept it and you move into it, so yeah. And
I appreciate that, because that really that summed it up. And I'm glad you brought that forth, because a lot of people don't realize that when they start being called on this journey, this is a real journey. It is not for play. It is like, when they don't realize when they're called on that journey, like it sounds like to me, you had about 3 tower moments already.
Listen, so many.
I was gonna say,
yeah.
Because it's like, wait a minute, and to speak to that thing, I had one of my teachers that I studied with. She said that she was doing work and she was being called to this work, and she, of course, did like we do. Not right now, okay, but right now I'm doing this, because I got to make money, these kind of things, And she said all of a sudden, then she had this like terrible car crash. So then she couldn't do that work, and I think about that. It's like, with myself, I had a couple as well, like when I moved from across the country, and I moved from the east to the west. And when I moved, I knew it was a call from God. But in my mind, I thought, okay, if God told me to do it, then everything is just gonna line up immediately. There's no waiting, none of that, none of that going through those tower moments, none of that. So what happened to me was I got fired from 2 jobs.
Wow.
Like within a week of each other, I had 2 jobs. And I knew, because I kept feeling this pull and this tug, and I also am a person that I have known my destiny since I was very young. But I did not follow that, because of course it's weird. And if you're already, a weird kid, and then you grow up to be a weird adult, and that.
Before you get
right. Before you get solidified in that, you know what I mean? Like now you're at a space where you don't care. If it's weird, that's fine. Me too. Like, I'm okay, because I know that I'm doing what I'm being called to do.
Yeah.
And that is just so amazing. So I'm hoping that people picked up on that, because that, to me, knowing that you need to pay attention, you need to listen, because you never know how that thing is going to go. It's almost like you're going to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this is what you need to be doing here in this planet, because, healers, we are needful, especially now, and so however it takes to get you there, that'll get you there.
Yeah.
So what if you had some advice for anybody that was in your space? Like when you were going through those tower, dark, huge dark nights of the soul. If you have anything to say to somebody in that space, like where you were those years ago when you were going through all that, because that also, to me, is super common too, because so many
Mhm.
of us go through that too, but in a lot of times in different ways, but we go through it,
Yeah.
bad marriages, bad relationships, all that kind of stuff, things not going so well and all of this stuff. So when somebody is in that space, where they feel like they want to give up, because that to me is where it sounds like you were,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
where
So
you
many
were like,
times.
I used to call it, um, I used to say, you would have a death wish. That's what I say.
Mm-hmm.
I say it's a death wish, whether you really acknowledged it or not. Your actions, that is what
Oh
that
yeah.
was, and so if you were to say something to anybody that is in that space, what would you say to them?
Yeah. I would say, it's one of those things. It's like, because I think in a way, if I think about what I would say to myself, there was part of me that I just had to go through those things, in order to wake up. And it did, very literally take me death wishes to wake up and go, no,
Yeah.
actually, I'm worth so much more than that. But what I would say is that every single person on this earth is intrinsically worthy just by virtue of being here, and everybody has a purpose that is so profound it will blow you away. Like, you will just be like, oh my god, how is this even real? When we really start to accept our initiations into life, we start to see how profound it is, and how it is like this intricate intelligence that works through us all. And when you can start to pay attention to that, when you can start to pay attention to those little nudges, when you can start to pay attention to your dreams and to all of the little signs that you get throughout your day, which are going, it's that way, go that way, that's when it just starts to, it's almost like the more you pay attention to it, the more you receive from
Yes.
it. The more you give your grace to God, the more grace you receive in return, because it's reciprocity.
Yes.
And so the more that you can honor that, the more you can honor your inner voice, your inner child, all those things that you loved doing when you were young, or create space. Maybe you didn't have that, but maybe you can create space for your inner child to express. That's what you're here to do. Everybody has a gift. I will never not believe that every single
Yes.
person has a gift to offer this world, and you just have to tune in and just remember it, because you already know it. You just need to be reminded.
I love that. I love that. I love it. And I'm going to tell you why I love it so much. Because I just did a video. Matter of fact, I'm doing a workshop on this, because it came to me and I was like, what do I do with this? And Spirit was like, do a workshop, because you like those anyway. But I did like just a video on YouTube, kind of introducing it and talking about it. And it's called Remember Who the Fuck You Are.
Chills.
And so that's what you were saying. I was like, oh my God, she's all in my workshop. I was actually working on that today before we got on. I was like, you know what? We have to remember, because we know. I was telling them, I said, this world is really assimilation. We've already fucking done this.
Yeah.
And the wisdom that is coming through you, young lady, is so filling. I mean, oh my God. So let's talk a little bit about how you came into this knowledge. Like, did you do a lot of studying? Did you go and do like shamanic initiations or anything like that? Speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a bit of an old soul. You know, everyone
Yes,
has
you
always
are.
said that. I've been the weird, I was always, when you said about being the weird child, I'm like,
Yeah.
that's me. That was me. You know, I was weird. My grandmother used to be like, she's 8 going on 28. Like, I don't know what's going on with her. Like, my mom as well used to be like, what is wrong with this child? You know, so I guess that's just maybe for some reason maybe to do with my mission and what I'm here to do is just always remembered an aspect of that part of me, you know. Even when I was working in the brothels back in the day, one of the women who ran it, she heard me on the phone to my friend and she was like, you sound like a philosopher, like why are you working here? And I was like, I don't know. So
What you
you
said?
know, there's
I need money.
yeah, exactly, right? So yeah, and
It's a
I
little
think
thing.
it's archetypes. You know, we all hold different archetypes, and we can, you know, when it's all those little things, isn't it, that people say to you, like, oh, you're really good at that, or you're good at expressing that, or you're good at drawing, or you're good at this. You know, that was the little signs that were being mirrored back to me of what I should be doing or where I should be looking into. And so yeah, I think my whole life has been a series of shamanic initiations. But I have also studied different traditions, and that's, I think, was maybe Reiki was the first thing. Like a lot of people, you know, Reiki just
Yeah.
opens you up. I always say to people, like, if you're looking for a place to start, just get attuned to Reiki. Like, just
Yes.
do it, because it will just open, you'll start to remember more just from having that those attunements done. You know, I think that's always a really good place to start. And then I kind of went more into the sort of earth shamanism kind of stuff, and then I really learned a lot from like quantum healing and akashic records.
Yes.
I draw from the
I love
shamanic
that.
traditions. You know, I think they have so much value. I'm also very connected with the stars and that sort of interstellar kind of collectives coming through, and I get that a lot in sessions with clients, you know, different information coming from different stars and beings from different stars and things like that. So yeah, I think I kind of have drawn from different modalities that I've studied to kind of form my very own kind of, you know, as we all do. All healers, I just think all healers are, you know, we take from our different things which resonate, but
Yeah.
ultimately what we do is it's our own thing,
Magic.
you know. Yeah, totally, that everybody who holds that archetype strongly has. We all bridge in different things, you know.
Yes.
But yeah, absolutely, I have studied, I've always been really interested in the human body and like detox and things like that. Like I've done a lot of fasting, fruit cleansing, think, you know, I've always been really interested in that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, I guess it's just been things that have piqued my interest over the years, and I've kind of drawn from them, I suppose.
I love that. I love that because that that is amazing because I know that a lot of times when we start on this path, because I started same thing, Reiki. That was my first. I tell people Reiki is like the gateway energy. Because
Yes.
it, oh, you know how they say, you know, the other thing is the gateway to you know drugs and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The plant is, you know, but
Yeah.
that's how I feel about Reiki. Reiki was like
Mhm.
an open door. It was a gateway to energy. And then after that, because you know, I tell people I'm like, I don't really do Reiki, I do energy because I can't always remember those symbols and none of that stuff. But I do know how to intend and I know how to move energy. And so I say that. And then from there, you know, I did the same thing. I love the quantum stuff. I love that stuff. So
Yeah.
I did that.
Yeah.
I did the quantum Reiki. I really like and also I think it's another one, Q something or other, some other quantum something. And I
Oh,
actually love those things. Like I get into them and it took me a minute to understand like Dr. Joe Dispenza.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that struggle for me was real. I couldn't understand what he was saying. I knew it was something probably good, but I couldn't really, you know, get it. And then one day I had a Kundalini awakening, and all of a sudden, so many things became clearer. Like
Mm.
I could understand because, like, he would be talking, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, what is he saying?" You know, and I could understand him. And it was another one that I really liked, Dr. Bruce Lipton. I like him too. And he was another one. He was going way over my head. I was like, I'm not stupid, but I can't understand. But then all of a sudden, I said I had that awakening, and so many of these things became clearer. So now, did you have like a moment like that where, you had this time and all of a sudden now, you've done Reiki and now you're moving on to, other things like I did theta healing and so many, so many different things, and exactly like you said, just pull what you need from each thing. And then also, I don't know if this happens for you, but also do you pull from ancestral stuff and things that you intuitively know, like maybe from other lives and things like that?
Absolutely, yeah. So much of my stuff that kind of comes through is remembered from past lifetimes. I have, since I was probably about 20 when I started having past life dreams. So probably about 10 years ago, I started having these really intense past life dreams that were just so out of this world, like people with like dark skin and red hair, like speaking light language. I'd never heard of light language before, really intense dreams with like crystal skulls and, all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, at that point, I kind of was like, okay, there's something interesting going on here. But yeah, totally. And yeah, I get a lot of I do a lot of like past life work in the akash. So I've cleared a lot of my own past lifetimes and integrated gifts, and I work a lot with light language. I work a lot with different interstellar collectives, as I had mentioned before. So I also receive information of like, oh, this is how you take this out of someone's field, or this is how you shift this cord, or this is how you clear these contracts, or different sort of things like that as well. That's just sort of downloaded information of how to work within the human energy field.
That is so powerful. That's some powerful work. Because I'm listening to you, and I almost can see the transformations that you bring. Like that is just so powerful, because a lot of times I noticed that people will work with even Reiki, they'll work with Reiki and stuff like that. But it doesn't all the time take you to those what do I want to call it? To those quantum leaps.
Yes.
It doesn't often all the time, for me, it feels like the energy comes through me and I can feel it and it's beautiful. But then that's it. I mean,
yeah,
what's next?
absolutely. I so agree with you, because I think Reiki is beautiful. It's a beautiful
Yes.
tool, and just for relaxation, like I just lie and I
Yes.
just Reiki on myself and I'm like, oh, beautiful, but if I want to go really, really deep, if I'm looking for like the point of origin of something, which is so often found within past lives. So, if someone comes to me and they're experiencing like an issue in relationships, like they always meet someone that's not interested in them, or their partner always rejects them or leaves them, I'm not going to just offer them Reiki. I'm going to be like, okay, let's take a look in your records here, because there's obviously a loop that is playing out. If we're experiencing patterns, things over and over again, and we're like, what is going on with this? Usually it is something past life. It can even be something that has happened in a galactic lifetime that is how I call it is like, it's almost like when something comes up to be cleared, the volume will turn up on it. So it will get really, really loud in our field, and it'll keep happening because it's asking for us to look at it from a different perspective. Totally. And so that's what I'm always looking for with clients, is like, let's go right to the root. And sometimes it's not always possible to pull everything out. Sometimes you might just be able to release a cord and a contract, because everyone's energy is different, what they can hold. Some clients, you might just be able to just whip through so much stuff in a session because their energy can hold it. But other people, maybe it's not the right time for us to collapse a whole record in their field, a whole sort of energetic structure. Sometimes it might just be, okay, we're going to take out that cord with that person and we'll watch and see if they stop contacting you now. The amount of times that has happened in a session where either someone gets in touch with the client shortly after we take a cord out, or apologizes, or it's like, oh, hey, how are you doing? Like, not spoken to you in a while, or, you know, because we're also energetically connected in that
Yes.
way. But, you know, that's what I'm always looking for is, okay, how can we create a shift here? How can we move this energy even just a little bit? Or
Yeah.
maybe we're ready to move a lot, but let's take out these cords, let's take out these contracts. And, you know, I think that's what a lot of us need to be aware of as well, is like all those marriage contracts that you've made over all these different lifetimes. Sometimes they can still hold, sometimes they can still magnetize you towards certain
Oh
people,
God.
you know, some, you know, or maybe you've made an oath, or maybe you've made a sort of a blood pact, things like that. You know, that was really popular at one point
Yeah.
in human. I see that a lot in people's records, and they're like, oh, you know, I'm always bumping up against this person and we're always sort of arguing, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what happened to my screen there.
I don't know,
Did
but
you
that's
see that?
beautiful. I saw that. I was like, how'd you do that? That's neat.
I don't know how that happened.
You know why? Because you're magic. That's why.
I've never seen that happen before. That's
You
hilarious.
know, I'm telling you, when I saw it, all I could think was Cinderella. Bibbity bobbity boo.
Totally, yeah, that was a Disney moment there. But yeah, you know, often it, you know, it'll sort of be reflected back to us like, oh, this person really annoys me, or you know, I can never hear them correctly, or I can never kind of connect with them on that deep level. It's like, yeah, because you've got these energetic contracts that are like bumping up against each other and sort of causing this kind of negative rippling kind of energy. So the magic I have seen when we shift those, and it's like all of a sudden you can like hear your partner clearer, you can hear your friend clearer, and it's like those communication blockages do just kind of fall away. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I've got like a million stories of the magic I've seen with clients just in shifting these little pieces that we've had running for often hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes.
Okay. That is so amazing, because I mean, just to think about that is like, wow, you know, because we actually identified a cord. I was working with the young lady, and she actually identified a karmic loop with within my bloodline. So like, my grandmother had a hysterectomy around the age of 42. My mother had a hysterectomy around 39 or 40. I had a hysterectomy to me about 42.
Wow. Okay.
So, and of
Yeah.
course we don't know before, you know, I don't think her mother, like my grandmother's mom, I don't think she, you know, because that would have been back in the like, I think she was born in like 1900 or something. And so it's like, but we identified this loop. And then we went in and we cleared it for my daughter, because that was my thought. You know, I was like, okay, I need to clear this for my child, because I don't think that, you know, if she don't have to go through that, I really would prefer her not to, you know, and none of the rest of my lineage. So I just, so that work to me is so powerful, you know, because it's like you never think of it. You see the patterns, but you don't really see that they are patterns. So how can you, when you do your work, because this is something that when you do your work, um how do you share with people that they have these patterns, especially, you know, and in my mind I'm thinking like somebody that, you know, might be a little bit resistant to that knowledge. So
Yeah.
what's a way that you would share that, you know, with the person? Because I actually have dealt with that. That's why I'm asking this question.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. And I would love to say as well, yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up around the hysterectomy stuff, because I have literally seen that exact same karmic pattern
Yeah.
before, and it blew my mind of how, you know, because our wombs are so incredibly powerful, and on that energetic
Yes.
level, you know, that
Yeah.
when that happens, you know, it creates such a ripple throughout all of the descendants to come as well. And that's, yeah, it fascinating that that's also come through for you. And yeah, I a lot of my clients tend to be quite open most of them. I've been very like fortunate in that sense, but I think thinking back to times where, you know, I think some clients just don't necessarily want to go there and aren't necessarily open to that kind of work, you know. Like I have also done, I used to work in a shop doing like sort of psychic readings and things like that, and all this really deep stuff used to come through, and I'd be like, I don't even know if I can share this because this person just wants to know about their romantic relationship. And I don't even do readings like that anymore, because I think it's about the healing. It's not about the, look, this is the future timelines that I'm seeing for you. But I think just breaking it down as simply as possible and going, look, do you believe in past lives? You know, and I always ask people as well, I'm like, are you open to the idea of past lives? Are you open to the idea of like epigenetics and ancestral karmic patterns? Like where do you kind of stand with that, you know? Because I do a lot of like entity clearings and things like that as well, and that's something that can be a really touchy subject. Some people, even if they are very sort of spiritual, they might, and I use that in quotation marks, spiritual, because what does that mean really? But you know, even if they feel that they are that, they might be really, really resistant to the idea of entities and how that can sort of work and operate in people's fields and things like that. So yeah, I think it's just always about testing into people's boundaries and seeing what they're ready to hear, and just kind of bridging in as much information as you can without, we don't want to scare people, of course, you know.
Yes, because that really is a thing. Like, you know, because I also did that. I think probably lots of us have done this, but I also did the same thing, readings in the shop, and I also don't do them either. You know, I had two ladies come through that wanted to know when was their husband going to die.
Oh God.
And I thought, yeah, but no. I'm like, you ask him?
Yeah.
You know, but same thing. And it's like, you know, like I'm same thing, like I'm getting all this stuff, you know, coming through. And yeah, and they want to know, you know, is Johnny gonna call them? I mean, yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I knew it was over for me when I got too many people with the love readings. And that's like my least favorite thing, is like love
Me
readings.
too.
Like I'm just like, you're looking for this person because there's something that needs to be resolved within you, you know, and then you'll match with someone when it's time. But if that's such a red flag for me, for a client, if that's the only thing that they're interested in, then we're probably not going to be a match to working with each other, you know.
Yes, I do, because I'm the same, because I feel like I do readings on TikTok, right? And so people come through with those questions. Well, is Johnny gonna call me? And is Sally, you know, gonna forgive me? And all that. I'm like, see, here's the thing. And so I tell them, I said, I don't do those. I said, because they're too distracting. I said, number one. Number two, you already know what it is. I said, but you hoping that I'll say something different. And no,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. That is not why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I didn't think anybody else had that same kind of experience with the readings, because I actually went in the shop the other day and she was like, oh, well, we miss you. Are you ready to come back? I was like, I'm not doing that. I was like, I am not doing that. I was like, no. I said, because to me, after a while, that stuff starts getting on your nerves. And
Absolutely.
especially if you're not there, you know, for that type of trivial shit. You're like, no, no.
Yeah, because you want to go really deep, you know. It's the same. Like I you know, I communicate with people that have crossed on and everything like that, but I'm always like, okay, but how can we get you over to the other side? Like, let's not just sit and have a conversation here. Like, let's cross you over. Like, you shouldn't be stuck in the in between, you know. And it's the same with clients. You know, I use my mediumship for that deep ancestral work, because that's so vital when you've got ancestors coming forward being like, by the way, this needs to be cleared, this needs to be cleared, and so does this, you know. It's, you need to have your mediumship on for that kind of stuff. But I don't want to just sit and talk with people that have passed on all the time, you know. I'm like, let's create the movement here, not keep things stagnant.
Thank you. That set me free, because I do love mediumship. I do. I like that. And they come now to me, and, I have a strange medium story since I was a little girl.
Okay.
I would see the dead people, but I would see them in a crazy way. And so I never told anybody but my grandmother, because she, I guess, the only person that ever understood me in my whole life. And so I told her, and, she would tell me. But what I would do is, like, say we would go, because my grandmother was a pastor. So we were always going to funerals and shit, and people, and she would always go, people would call her to come and pray for them and stuff like that. And so we were always going somewhere doing something. And I was with her, I was her road dog. And so we'd go and we'd see people. And so, like, say if I went to see, girl, it's like I would get this vision, like a blip, and I would see the person in the casket. And it didn't even have to be, some of them weren't like sick that we knew of. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't the people like that she went to pray for that had cancer and, heart attacks, heart, surgery, none of that kind of stuff. Sometimes it would be people that we didn't know that was sick. And so then I would see them in the box. And the craziest thing is, I think the thing for me that did it was when we would go to the funeral, they would have on the exact same thing that I saw them in the box.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So for me, that was my experience growing up, and I asked God to take that one away. So I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. I'm like 6, 7 years old, 5 something. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? So I asked my grandmother, and she said, you're supposed to pray. She said, pray. Because I said, am I supposed to tell them? And she said, pray and ask God if you should tell them. She said, because sometimes it's just for you to pray. It's not for you to do anything. Maybe they couldn't handle it. But she said, some people just can't handle knowing, even if and then the other thing too is, it didn't have to be then, because like I never got like time periods of when it was going to happen. Like I had one of those when one of my aunties. But what happened was I had the vision of the one auntie, but the other auntie passed. And so, yeah, crazy. And then when the auntie that I had the vision about, when she finally passed, she did have on the white suit I saw her in. So that kind of was like, I don't know what's going on here, because typically when I would see them, they wouldn't be here, after a while. So I was like, all right. But when it started coming back on, when I started doing, the Reiki and the theta healing and all the different, the meditations and the stuff, and how we do things and study the stuff, and, take this course and that course and the other course and the third course and the 12th course, then this stuff started happening. And I was like, okay, here I go. But they started coming differently. So I don't see them in the casket anymore. Thank God.
Mm-hmm.
They just show up. And it was a surreal thing for me, because I had pushed all of that stuff down, because I did the church thing. I was over in the church, and, of course, in the church, what do they call me? A prophetess. So I'm in the church and I'm doing the church thing and all that. And all this stuff, of course, is, the devil. And this is the devil.
Yeah.
Astrology, cards, anything, tarot, of course. Oh my God, that's the devil, And so I had to kind of get through some of those religious wounds. That's what I want to call them, religious wounds, and really begin to trust God, So I'm trying to think, there was a time when in your life where you really had to trust. You want to share a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, gosh. I'm like trying to isolate a singular moment. But yeah, I think that has definitely been a theme, even with, well, actually what springs to mind is like, even with what I'm doing now, which I was sharing a little bit with you at the start, when we first got on the call, of just I knew I was going to be moving somewhere. My guides kept saying, "Yep, like your time in Scotland is up." I'd done a lot of traveling all around Mexico and Central America and Costa Rica in
Nice.
sort of 2021 to 22, late 22. So 2022. So yeah, I got back to Scotland towards the end of 2022, and this all started coming through around the end of 2023. So I knew that I was moving somewhere, but I didn't know where. And I was like, where is it going to be? I thought it was going to be somewhere with beaches and oceans and, and there are beaches and oceans where I am, but it's not hot. I was thinking it was going to be like this sunny, hot country. And I even felt my house like release the contract with me. It was like, no, someone else is going to be moving here, like you're gone kind of thing. So I was like, okay, where am I going? And a friend of mine contacted me and said, hey, I've booked these really cheap flights to Ireland. Do you want to come? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And it was weird because I realized that exactly a year to the day prior, I had actually had a dream that I was traveling around all the sacred sites of Ireland. So I get a lot of information through my dreams and a lot of premonitions and that kind of thing. But I'd sort of taken note of that one, but I didn't think, oh, this is definitely going to happen. I thought, oh yeah, maybe I'll take a trip to Ireland one day. But yeah, so I flew over with my friend and just started receiving these incredibly strong messages from the land. And I have never had a spirit of a land open up to me as strongly as this one has ever.
Hmm.
Like I have had, experiences of land mediumship and making offerings to the land and, receiving messages from Gaia. But this was different for me. This was so different. There was something so much deeper and just this like ancient past life. I do have ancestry from Ireland on my dad's side as well, but there was so much in it. And I was having all of these visions. I was being shown places like you need to visit here and getting the names of places and looking them up, and they were actually places that exist and that I need to visit and all of that kind of stuff. And so I had to make a real leap of faith by moving here because I don't really know that many people here. I'm only over the water. It's like an hour's flight from Scotland, but it's a big thing to move somewhere on your own and just sort of decide that because spirit calls, you have to answer. And so yeah, it's been this total mystical, magical journey of just releasing and trust. And I had to learn to drive to move here as well. I couldn't drive before, so then I needed a car to be able to move here. So that has been this huge process of just relinquishing control and just deepening into that kind of almost like nomadic kind of healer archetype as well, that which I think is very strong, very much exists as sort of traveling medicine woman. And so I'm kind of like doing that right now, living in a van, just sort of traveling around and just really connecting with the land in a way that I have never done in anywhere else I've lived before.
That was so powerful because I mean, what came to mind to me was you did that in your 20s?
Well, I'm like, how old am I? I turned 30 in March.
Okay, so
So
you just did this just this year.
yes, just this year.
But
Just
still,
this
I'm
year.
like, you did that in your 30. I did that at 40. I was 45. I did that journey, just trusting God. This is what I heard. This is what I need to do. And the thing about that I saw was you had to trust them with each step. Trust them with each step. Because I believe that God is a collective. But trust them at each step. The first thing was, it's time for you. This is what happened to me. It's time for you to leave this place. That was what I heard. And I was like, okay, who's talking to me for one? Number two, what are you talking about? Leave what place? What, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, what? Career, job, all that. And, and just do it. And then listen for the next, bit of instruction and say, okay, do this, go here, make this right. make this left, go down, and then nothing for a while, right?
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, and to me, it almost felt like right at the time when I was at the end, where I was like, now listen, and you told me to do this, God, you told me to do this. So what's up?
Yeah.
I have some needs here. I have some things, that I need, things that I desire, things that, are gonna make my life better, whatever. And it's amazing how when you see how the things just start to unfold. And I think to me, it's always best to look back and see it, because when you're going through it, see, a lot of times it's so painful, you're like, but when you start looking back and you see how the trajectory went, you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And also too, I think it makes you realize what a badass you are. When you look at that and you're like, oh my God, I came to a place where I didn't know, because I was the same. I had one cousin where I went, didn't know nobody. I had been there only once when I was like 9 years old.
Mm.
So when I made this move, I just, I went on the leap of faith, just like you said. Take that leap of faith. And that is so powerful. And I hope that if any of you get nothing else from what we said, was take the leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
Take the leap of faith and trust your God self. Trust the source. Trust the universe, the creator. Whatever you call him, her, or them. So I have one question that I ask each and every guest before we land this plane. The question is, if there was anything in the world that you could change, what would that be and why? And I've never gotten the same response.
Okay, change as in the world?
In the world, some people, I have had somebody that said that they would change themselves. I've had some people that said that they wouldn't change anything. And I've had a whole bunch of variety of responses in the middle of all of that. So it's really according to, how you feel about it.
Yeah. I I'm gonna kind of pick up on a thread that you had shared about, when things kind of go silent. It's like you get the instruction and you do the thing and then it goes silent. And it doesn't matter how wide open your channel is, you can still have times where everything goes silent and you're like, the fuck? I can't hear, pardon my French, but
Exactly.
you can't hear anything and you're like, why are the messages not coming through right now? And so I think
What
that
did I do?
I think we go through times like that as a collective, where it's almost like that we have to trust in the silence, we have to trust in the dark. And so if I could sort of change something, because I think everything's always changing, everything's always in flux at the same time, so maybe I would sort of put out an invitation of like, to be for more people to be able to trust in that dark space where the seeds are planted, and that dark space where it is silence, and we do just have to sit with just us and just trust. And maybe we can't hear God, maybe we can't hear source, maybe we don't know what the next right step is, but we're just here with ourselves, and we just have to be okay with that. And there's so much rich teachings and lessons within those spaces that we find it so hard to actually rest within and sit within.
Yes. That, that is so perfect. And it's, again, another different answer. But I think that's amazing because, if you think about it, like I think when I first came up with this question, my thing, because of course I asked myself, my thing was, I would love it if racism didn't exist.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it didn't always, there was a
Mm-hmm.
time, because I love history. So I've been studying, and I studied some stuff, and there was a time when that wasn't a factor. People didn't, weren't looking at you for, what's the color of your skin. And they didn't even ask that on applications, which to me, that would be a start.
Yeah.
Don't even put it on any applications, because what is the difference? But that was my thing, because I was like, what would I say to this? Because I said, I asked people these questions. I said, but I want to know what would I say? And that was what I said. And the funny thing is, nobody else had said that. on any show,
Interesting.
and I've asked it at least 100 times.
Wow.
And I'm like,
Wow.
well, nobody said that, but I
Mm,
did have one woman that said she wouldn't change anything.
interesting.
And
Yeah.
I thought so too. I was like, and then I think about it too. It could be that, when you evolve to another place, some of these things, they don't really affect you. Like when you start really doing that shift, that we all do. But when you start really, entering into that shift where, you're embodying a different timeline, and
Mm,
I tell people, I said, not only a timeline, but a timeline that you didn't think existed, but it still does. And
yeah.
we can exist in them simultaneously, because typically we're gonna go, it's almost like people when they talk about bipolar. And I was like, well, honestly, we really all are bipolar. It's just to what extent? I said,
Yeah.
because nobody's ever the same. I mean, one day you might be down in the dumps, and the next day you might be, up on the roof, but so if you think about it in that terms, we're all that way. I'm like, I try to be, positive and encouraging and happy every day, but I'm quite sure that I don't achieve that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we can't be all up all the time, you know? Totally. And yeah, and I love what you say about we're all kind of existing on all these different timelines simultaneously. And yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting the experiences that we draw in when we're in that sort of we're processing maybe some really deep ancestral stuff. And I've had this before, where I'm processing ancestral stuff, or maybe stuff from childhood, and then I'm experiencing all this like kind of subtle sort of racism or sometimes overt racism, and I'm like, but then the next day I could be on a different, I've maybe cleared that, and it's not, I just don't notice it. I'm not in that frequency, I'm not in that
That space.
vibration,
Yes.
it just, but I would never be like, oh, it doesn't exist because I'm not experiencing it right now, you know.
Yeah, I've heard that people say that, and I almost cringe. I was like, okay, you can't tell me that you have lived on this earth for, 20, 30, 40 years as a person of color, and you can't tell me that you haven't experienced it in some way. I said, now, can
Totally.
I say that? I've never been, taken out of my car and beaten by the police. But do I know that it exists? Hell yeah. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Did I talk to my sons, when they were starting to drive? Because we lived in the suburbs in the South. And when they were starting to drive, did I talk to them? Because I said, this is what you do when you get pulled over. Not if, because you're going to get pulled over, because, you look how you look. We live where we live. You got, these officers where we are. I said, so it's not if, it's when. This is what you do. Because I don't need, I'm not trying to bury anybody.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not interested in that. So these are the things. But it's, and to me, we can go like that even in this arena,
Mm-hmm.
because what I found is that there is a lot of, um, let's say, challenges in this community with that kind of stuff. And so I found that it is difficult for me to um, do like shamanic work with somebody that is not indigenous in some way. That is very difficult. And I don't, I haven't, because I ask myself all the time, am I right? I don't want to be, wrong about, something like that. But for me, it's like, no, because that stuff comes through the bloodlines. I know this, and because you have it already in you. You've already had it, regardless of whether you've initiated with a group, which, sometimes I think that is a good thing and sometimes not so much.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Absolutely.
you get that stuff like you get it, because I had a young lady, I was in a like one of those challenges, which I have decided I ain't doing no more of those this year. Probably not next year either. You know what I mean? I was in this challenge, and so she was going through stuff, and and she didn't look like us, and so I was like, all right. So she was going through and she was talking about some stuff. And immediately when she started talking about some of the ancestral stuff, it's like I could feel my body contracting. And so I was like, I got to get out of this room, you know, because I feel that, because it's almost like, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say it. It's almost like they've taken colonizing to this community, which
I
is
understand that.
another reason why, you know, I do seek to interview more people in this community, because I see that, and I started seeing it. And you know how you see it, but you say, well, maybe I didn't see that. You know, you say, well, maybe that really wasn't red. Maybe it was purple. You know, maybe it was blue. But you know that it was red. And so that's
Absolutely.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
seen a lot of that or experienced that in a way?
Yeah. I mean, I think we are all coming from such different places, be that our sort of past life, you know, energy lineages that we carry, but also our ancestral stuff. And, you know, I have actually quite a lot of African American clients I've worked with, and me also having a sort of Caribbean background, I've found contracts running around slavery that are
Yeah.
we're still running, you know, and I have to do this reconciliation between the different ancestral lines to release that. You know, I've literally seen my ancestors in chains, you know, and they've been trapped and in the in between, and I've had to cross them over. And that, you know, that's one thing I always look for is if it's sort of people of color, indigenous clients, is like there's different things that are playing out with the ancestral lineages. And I do think that at one point everybody's been colonized at some point, but there is more recent histories of colonization that need to be looked at and carry a different kind of weight to them and hold different kind of entities. And look, I could talk about this all day, but there's so much going on within different bloodlines and different ancestries that, you know, I think it's really important as healers that we have an understanding of history. And I love that you say you love history, because I'm the same. I've always loved history, and it has served me so well as a healer, because I'm able to go, okay, there's that time frame. That happened in that time frame, when looking at ancestry and past lives, and being able to contextualize it and go, okay, this is what needs to be cleared around this, and you know, that kind of thing. And so, and I think in the sort of spiritual new age communities, there's often a lot of bypassing around race. And it's that thing of, I understand not wanting to talk about things that are challenging and painful. I can understand it, but at the same time, it's something that has to be addressed on some level, because this is the world that we're living in. And yeah, we can all be in those kind of higher timelines, shall we say, where we've overcome that kind of stuff, because I do believe that one day we will, as humanity, overcome that, and it won't be so heavy and so dense. And a lot of this is like Atlantean karma that we carry about race. This goes so far back in human history, you know, and we have to learn to resolve it and understand it, and understand different perspectives of where different lineages are coming from around this stuff, because it runs deep, and we can't bypass it. We have to be able to understand it and release it.
You're so right. And that is so real. And it just, when I consider and I think about it, because the thing that was so amazing, I have to share this with you. When you came on and you started talking about the ancestral healing, so I actually just found a program, because I'm working on I just got my thing in metaphysics. And so I'm working on like my master's in that, but I want to get my PhD, right? And so I was looking, and I didn't really see a program I really wanted to do, you know. I looked, and all of a sudden I seen that they have a PhD in ancestral healing.
Oh wow. Full
That's what
body
I
chill.
said. That's what I said. I was like, that's what I'm doing. So I was sharing with my mom. I was like, that's what I'm doing. She's like, oh. And so I was like, that is just, and it's new. So they didn't have it, because I was looking like last year, you know, kind of going through. And the crazy thing is, not crazy, but the thing is I got this download to write this article, which I think now is going to be probably an article, might be a book. I think it's going to be my thesis, but it's called Breaking the Chains of Religious Oppression.
Yeah.
What I said, I was like, ooh. You know, because I feel like, you know, that's a part of something that I'm called to do, is to help people to deconstruct all of that. Just because I know that world, I was in it. You know, my grandmother was a pastor, and then I went to church, and then I went to ministry school, and then I, you know, worked in the church and did all the stuff, raised my children, you know, all that. And so I know that world, you know, but I know this one as well. And so I feel like, you know, like I'm supposed to be bridge that, and I'm also supposed to break, you know, open the doors and open the gates, you know, stop all the damn gatekeeping and the bypass.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you're, I mean, I'm just amazed at how this conversation has gone. You know, when I thought about that, because when you said it, I was like, she's talking about what I'm talking about, because nobody really speaks on it that I've seen. I think I watched one girl, I can't think of her name. Her name is Lisa something, Vet or Vest or something like that. Anyway, she does stuff with the Shift Network. And so I saw a master class or a workshop or whatever that she did, and I listened, and it was really good. And she was actually talking about that too, because she's comes from like Native and African American, all kind of different, you know, she's, you know, and so she was talking about that too. And she was talking about the ethical responsibilities, because I think she did a book on something like, I think it's called The Ethical Medium or something like that. And I thought it was really interesting. So I've listened to some of it. I got it on Audibles. So I've listened to some of it, and it was pretty good, you know, but typically you don't see a lot yet from people that, you know, indigenous people, you know, because I call us indigenous because we are, you know, so you don't see a lot of that. So I love that you're doing that work, you know, because we really need that. And because some are like, I think a lot of people don't understand the trauma that we carry from all those generations back. You know, you think about it, and even if you look at this, so you have all these different nationalities within you, and most African Americans have the same, you know, because we we pull our stuff, and you know, you got all kinds of stuff. Like I told you, my husband is Scottish, and we knew that because of his name. But it's just amazing when you start to look at that stuff, and it's like, huh, you know, you're almost like, huh, huh, okay. So you want me to just get over it?
Mm.
All of these years of not only just slavery, because it was crazy how I actually had worked with this girl, and she did a karma clearing. And so that was one of the things that she cleared, was slavery and racism.
Right.
And it was amazing. I didn't know what to expect, you know, because I go into these things not knowing, and I think that's best.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what to expect. She just asked me to do it to help her, because she had created this thing. And so I said, okay. And so she did it. Girl, I'm telling you, I could feel the shift. I was like, oh my God. You know, because I said, and I always say this, one of the things that I'm in devotion to, like one of my highest core value deals, is freedom. And I never realized until just when I started diving into this, what that meant for me. And you know, because it's like I don't like to be stuck on a job. I'm not going to be in enclosed spaces. I will never go to prison, because I cannot be in those little boxes. You know, I'm not that person. And I think about it because I always used to say, if I had been in slavery, they'd have killed me early. Because I just can't be closed in. And I think about that. And it's like, okay, so but that is the highest thing. And so I thought, why? Why? Because they're my damn ancestors, you know, on different sides, you know, because I have all types of shit in me, you know. It's like, okay, you know, but this is how we get here. You know what I mean? Like we get to a place where we start looking and seeing, you know, what means the most to us. You know, and so that's the journey. Okay, I'm getting off. Okay, so let the people know if you're enrolling in anything or if you're accepting new clients or anything like that, and then tell the people what is the best place that they can connect with you.
Okay, and thank you. I just literally, I full body chills right now, Tammy. I was just like, yes, like speak the truth. I feel everything that you were saying there so strongly, and I think it's so important. And I think not enough not enough people are having those conversations around that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
also people that are sort of African descent, African indigenous, like African American, Caribbean. There's not enough of us having those conversations, you know.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you so much.
You're so
So
welcome.
profound. And yeah, so you can find me at Shakti Ama 314 on Instagram, and I'm on YouTube as well. Just kind of talking about different spiritual topics and life and just general kind of things. I also do a lot of light language channeling, light language clearings, that kind of thing as well. And yeah, I'm also on Facebook under Shakti Ama. And yeah, I do, you know, one-to-one sessions. Also, I take on mentorship clients as well, where we just work through clearing out your cache, activating psychic senses, just really deepening into your path and your mission and your soul blueprint and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's where you can find me. My website as well is naturalmystic.healing.space.
That's nice. And all of those details will be in the show notes. So you didn't have to remember.
Yeah, I'm like, that's a lot of information.
I was gonna say I will drop it down in the notes.
Thank you
Wherever
so
you
much.
are watching or listening to this. I'm in such gratitude to you because just this conversation, just like you said, and it's amazing how these conversations have been going in the last probably about 2 months for me. It's like every conversation is almost better than the last. Like I had an interview with somebody last week and it was so phenomenal. It was so good. And I was like, wow, you know, and then I come in with you and it's like, oh my God, you know, it's almost like, you know, more and more and more depth and more levels. And it's like, you know, because this, I feel like I could probably talk to you another hour, but that won't, you know, nobody will watch that long.
Totally. I feel like we have more to unpack. Maybe another time we could kind of delve in more
Definitely.
or
You're
something like that.
invited back whenever you're ready.
Love to, definitely. Yeah.
But anyway, I'm so excited. So anyway, we hope that you got so much out of this conversation because this has been a conversation that, you know, it was long overdue. I mean, we've needed to have these conversations for decades, you know, but the thing is now I'm so excited to see so many of us coming into this work and really helping people, you know, in ways that we can, because, you know, there are certain things and certain ways that we have been trained intuitively from even past lives. Because for me, I know that I've been a healer for a long time. I know it. I felt it. I know it. I actually just did an Akash reading, and you know, it brought up so many things, you know, and so I'm super excited for this conversation. And I cannot wait to do it again. Maybe, you know, I feel like we have some collaborations to do. I don't know what, but I feel that because I felt so strongly connected to you. And I only just found you right when I reached out to you. So I haven't been like binging you long. Like, you know, of course I binged you, of course. I've already been on your YouTube and subscribed and everything. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Of course. So, you know, so I just appreciate this conversation, and I appreciate you sharing your time and your energy and your space with us. And that is, you know, that's priceless to me. So
Oh, thank you. It's such an honor. Such an honor. Thank you.
yeah, you know, and I'm honored because, you know, I love when I see young people, you know, on this journey and doing this thing, because that's what we need, because y'all are going to change the world. you know, and I'm super excited to be here to see it and be a part of it and be able to support, you know, I mean, all of that. Because I just truly believe, you know, I believe what Whitney Houston said, children are our future. And I believe y'all's generation, because y'all are opening up more so quicker than, you know, like my generation. Like I'm Gen X. A lot of us are opening up for sure, but you guys have the benefit of youth. So you can come on in here, and then, you know, if you decide you want to have kids or whatever, you can raise conscious children, because that's what we need. That's what we need in this world. It's so crazy and chaotic. And first, honestly, I know I'm not from here. You know, I know there's another planet with my name on it.
Yeah. Definitely.
Right? It's like,
Yeah.
this is too crazy and too chaotic. And I, you know, I don't know why I was dropped off here, but
Totally.
right.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I just appreciate you. And I'm so grateful. And so if you're out there watching and you are a spiritual entrepreneur and you would like to join me on Straight Out of Savannah and share who you are, what it is that you do, make sure that you reach out to me on whatever platform you are watching or listening to this. And let's talk about it. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Shakti's details will be in the show notes, so you'll be able to go there and click any of those links. But we sure appreciate you for watching, and I hope that your day is magical. Bye now.